Welcome everyone to today's presentation. We are here for the Consumer Fraud Scams Targeting Seniors, presented by Legal Assistance for Seniors. I'm Jessie. I'm the director of the Downtown Oakland Senior Center, and I'm going to pass it over to our presenter, Darren.
Hey everyone, hope you're all having a good morning today. Let me just start sharing the presentation. Let's see here. All right, let me know. Does it look okay? Is it full screen?
Yes, it
Yeah.
does.
All right, good. Beyond that, before I begin, I just want to let you know if I'm talking too fast, if I'm not loud enough, please let me know, chime in. If you have any questions, just feel free to unmute and immediately start talking. I'll be happy to answer any of them. So then, the presentation today is on consumer fraud, and the organizations I'm here on behalf of are Legal Assistance for Seniors and HICAP. So, what is Legal Assistance for Seniors? Well, LAS is a nonprofit agency that's been assisting residents of Alameda County since 1976. Our mission has been and continues to be to ensure the independence and dignity of seniors by protecting their legal rights through education, counseling, and advocacy. Lastly, our legal, community education, and individual Medicare counseling services through HICAP are all free of charge. Now, how we help in the legal spectrum is we deal with a variety of issues, such as government benefits, be it Social Security, SSI, or CAPI, which stands for the Cash Assistance Program for Immigrants. And when we say we help with that, we don't help with filling out applications for them, but what we do assist with is if for whatever reason an agency isn't operating in a way they legally should be, we can help rectify that issue. We also help with senior immigrant issues such as filling out an application to get a green card or trying to apply for a citizenship. Elder abuse prevention, we do have some elder abuse attorneys who are capable of filing restraining orders. Kin caregiver issues, again, this is just assistance with things that may be deemed as financial elder abuse. Planning for the future. So unfortunately, we can't assist when it comes to wills, trust, or estates. So when we talk about planning for the future, we're talking about a legal document called an advanced healthcare directive. And what that is it's a document that outlines what your wishes are in case you're no longer able to communicate. We also help with healthcare coverage. Our main focus is on Medicare, but we also help with Medi-Cal and how it interacts with Medicare. Lastly, we do have a housing team, but our housing team is very small. We take cases on a case-by-case basis, and we focus mostly on tenant issues. But again, if you have a housing issue of any kind, please call us. We'll be able to direct you to somebody who can help. So you may have seen the term HICAP thrown around a few times. That stands for the Health Insurance Counseling and Advocacy Program. So HICAP provides assistance with Medicare and related health insurance by offering objective information to consumers about their benefits and their options. So something I want to state upfront is HICAP is California's SHIP program. Every state has their own SHIP program, and they're federally mandated in order to help assist with Medicare on a state level. So when we say objective information, something important to keep in mind, due to it being a program, we receive federal, state, and local funding. We're not being influenced by any third-party insurance companies because that's not where our money's coming from. And furthermore, we provide free information, and we're never able to make a choice for you. All we do is provide information so you can make the best plan for your own health. So through HICAP, we used to offer 30 plus locations to have a HICAP appointment throughout Alameda County. The pandemic's kind of changed that. So how most of the HICAP counseling appointments work nowadays is you would call in and you'd have an appointment through the phone with one of your counselors. Now, if you're uncomfortable with doing a phone, you could also do a Zoom appointment, which, we're doing a Zoom presentation right now, so it'd be something very similar to that regard. And if you're not comfortable with that, on a very, very select basis, some of our counselors are willing to meet in person at our offices in Oakland. But again, it depends on availability, but it doesn't hurt to ask. Now, something to know about HICAP counselors, all of them are registered with the state of California. To become licensed, you must meet educational requirements, and in order to keep that license, you have to continue fulfilling educational requirements. And that's due to the fact that Medicare is a complicated program that unfortunately changes every year. So we want to make sure our counselors have the most up-to-date information in order to best assist you. We also receive some HICAP service funds from the Center of Medicare Services as well as the California Department of Aging. We provide more than 150 HICAP appointments, HICAP educational presentations each year, much like the one you're at right now, so Medicare beneficiaries know their rights and their options. Lastly, if for whatever reason you have an issue with Medicare and your counselor isn't able to rectify it, let's say, for instance, Social Security or a third-party medical insurance company isn't working the way they legally should be, all difficult cases can be referred to our legal department, where hopefully an attorney is able to make things work. And of course, like everything else we do, all of this is 100% free. So then let's launch into the presentation. That's strange. So I've been having this weird issue with this presentation where when I go on, it skips 2 slides right here. I have no clue why. It's the only presentation that does that. So I'm just going to exit full screen real quick. So I don't know why it does that, but hopefully you can still read the slides. So then, let's first talk about some facts about fraud. So there are tens of millions of people who are victims of fraud each year in the United States alone. Furthermore, people in the US lose more than $40 billion a year from telemarketing and direct marketing scams. And unfortunately, this gets underreported. About 15% of all fraud crimes are reported because there's a lot of shame associated with these crimes and people don't file reports. So something important to keep in mind is that simply you're not alone. If you fall victim for a scam, don't beat yourself up about it. Tens of millions of people every year are falling for it. And something else to keep in mind, a lot of scammers are scamming as their job. They're doing it full time. So they get very good at it very fast. So unfortunately, there's an industry for it, which means it's very hard sometimes to spot one before you fall for it. So don't be a part of the 85% who aren't reporting. If you do fall victim for a scam, it's important to report it so more people know, and hopefully the authorities can figure out what's going on. So then, there's a common conception that
Darren,
yes.
who should we report it to? Our local police department or?
So at the end of the slide, we'll have some phone numbers and resources to contact, and we'll have some agencies that you could report to. So I'll get to that at the end. But that's a good question. Yeah. So then, there's a conception that seniors are often more targeted by scammers than others. And the reasons for that are simply most older adults will have more money, property, savings, or investments, so scammers can expect a bigger payday, for instance. If you're retired especially, then you have a lot more time to receive phone calls or be at home to receive a door-to-door solicitation. And compounding with that is that if you're now working or you don't have somewhere you need to be, you're very often able to listen to a sales pitch longer. Now, there was a conference I attended about a month ago or so, and it turns out most scam victims are actually younger adults, people in the 20 to 30 age frame. But the thing is, when it comes to older adults, what happens instead is that while they fall victim a lot less, they do end up giving a lot more money. So scammers are still tempted to go after older targets simply because they can expect a bigger payday. So then, who are the perpetrators of fraud? Well, usually there's a conception, if you think a stereotype of scammers being people overseas in a call center, and a lot of scam operations do operate that way, but it can really be anyone. There's a lot of professionals out there who also participate in scams. A lot of Medicare fraud comes from doctors, community members, let's say, for instance, you go to your local house of worship and there's a nice group that first build rapport with you, you become friends with them, and then they try selling you on some kind of financial product. That could be a scam, and they might not know that they're part of a scam either. Now, people you may know, let's say you've known somebody for years. Either they can fall on hard times and they may see this as an easy way to make some money fast, or again, it may just be another unwitting person who might be inviting you into a scam that they don't know that is already scamming them as well. So it's important to always be vigilant, no matter who you're interacting with. Always be critical and think, what are they selling you? Because a lot of the times when it comes to scams, if you think about it and you get all the information together, you'll realize something is wrong. And another good way to just view it is, if something is too good to be true, it probably is. So we're going to spend a lot of time on this slide. This is just discussing a lot of the common scams you may see. So I would say there are two forms of a basic scam. The one we have on the slide is that they will offer a free or a discounted service or product. In order to receive it, you have to pay or provide personal information. And that's a very common type of scam. Again, they're trying to entice you by offering something that you really want, so you won't think about why they're offering it to you, how you're going to get it. And they hope that you're not thinking too hard when they say, oh, you have to pay $500 or so in an administrative fee or a service charge, something like that. Unfortunately, there's another form of scam as well that a lot of you fall into, which is, instead of offering you something, they're going to try to scare you instead. And they hope that by scaring you, you're not going to think about what you're hearing and you'll pay or provide information instead. So, they don't send you to jail or hurt somebody, for instance. Now let's get into more specific examples. So then, some of the more common ones are, they'll offer you a free prize or a vacation, or they'll say, oh, you won a lottery or a sweepstakes. Now, again, these are very simple, where they claim, oh, you won $10 million. Now, that'd be fantastic. I'd love to win $10 million. Unfortunately, more often than not, nobody's giving that away for free. A lot of the time, you have to keep in mind, did I sign up for a sweepstakes? Did I enter a lottery? Because, again, they're not going to be giving away free prizes for nothing. Excuse me. When it comes to the lottery, you have to buy a lottery ticket. For most contests, you have to provide some kind of information to a legitimate corporation. Usually, if somebody's just reaching out and you have no recollection whatsoever of signing up for anything, it's going to be a scam. And again, a good way to find out if it's a scam is if you just start asking questions. They're usually not going to be able to answer them very well, or they may just say things that flat out contradict what they said before. So it's always good to ask questions. And what they'll also usually do is they'll try and make it sound like, if you hang up, if you think about it for 5 minutes, this prize is going to somebody else. They want you to act very fast so you're not thinking. So even if you're like, just give me some time to think about it, the scammers will usually get very mad and they'll try to pressure you, which again would not be something a legitimate contest or lottery would do. So let's move onward now. Door-to-door sales. So this has become a lot less common over the years, especially with COVID, since most people aren't opening their doors anymore. But I had this happen a few years ago where somebody pretended to be a PG&E employee. And he went up to my door. He had a clipboard and he said, hey, can I look at 2 of your previous power bills? A new California law passed that will make it so you pay a lot less in power. I was like, okay, that's kind of strange. I usually try to keep up with what's going on in California, and I had never heard of a law like that. So I asked him, well, what was the law? What did it say? And he couldn't answer. He just went back to, well, the new law passed and you'll pay less for your power. And I'm like, but why? He could never answer that question. And usually what the goal is with a lot of these scammers, again, is They're trying to get either money or information. So what could have happened if I gave him the bills is he could have said, oh, there's a $200 administrative fee, for instance, for them to lower my power bill. But my bet, what I would assume he would be trying to do instead is he was trying to get personal information, because information is also very valuable to a lot of scammers. What they can do instead is they can get this information and they could either try and steal your identity, where they can open up a line of credit in your name, or they can also get your information, compile it together, and sell it to another scammer who will then use that information to create a better tailored, targeted scam. So it's just important, even if they're not asking for payment, you might still be getting scammed to some degree. And when it comes to somebody pretending to be from a corporation, for instance, it doesn't hurt to ask for proof that they're from the company. For instance, the PG&E guy, he had no outfit. I asked him for his employee ID, he didn't have it. Most places, people are going to have some kind of identification. I mean, for instance, I have a name tag for legal assistance for seniors. So, and if they do provide some kind of identification, but you're still not sure, you can always contact the company and just verify, because it doesn't hurt to be careful. Now, telephone scams. These have been very common. I mean, every day, I'm pretty sure we all get a scam phone call. What I will also say, at the beginning of lockdown, when everything started shutting down for COVID, the IRS and Social Security scams in particular, I would receive about 3 times a week. So I know these were very common for a while. And these are the kind of scams that try to scare you. For instance, the IRS one would say, you owe us a lot more money than you gave for your taxes. You have to send $500 to us right now or we'll throw you in jail. I see Kay's raising her hand. Okay.
Okay, it looks like you're on mute. Do you have a question?
Am I still muted?
No, we can hear you.
Okay, because the line is still going across there. I don't know. But anyway, I know that you're going to have Q&A at the end of the presentation, but I just wanted to put this there so you can put a ribbon around it so we can talk about this.
Sure.
Question is, why are we citizens being bombarded by these robocalls?
So,
and why is it being allowed by our country, especially for our senior citizens? So could you please just maybe help us understand that a little bit at the end?
Sure. I mean, I could try tackling this question right now to some degree.
Okay.
So what I will say, unfortunately, first off, there doesn't seem to be much congressional motivation to pass a law, which is very unfortunate because, again, it is literally becoming an everyday thing where it feels like we get scam calls, robocalls all the time. So it's immensely frustrating. But what I will also say is that logistically, it's becoming very difficult to regulate this, because a lot of scammers, what they're doing is they're using this technology that's called spoofing, where they can change their phone number to look like somebody else's phone number. For instance, if you call back any scammer, what will usually happen instead is you'll just be calling somebody who doesn't know what's going on, because the scammer's phone number wasn't legitimate. So it becomes very hard to track and crack down on them, especially since a lot of scammers are overseas as well. So in order to really stop the scammers, there kind of need to be a bit of an overhaul to how cell phone communication's done in general. I mean, it's possible. There definitely needs to be some more financial pressure, and Congress would need to act on it, but it could be doable. So I hope there's some changes in the future, because again, it is constant and annoying for sure.
Thank you.
No problem. So again, with the IRS, they'll usually say that they're from the IRS and that you owe them a lot more in taxes. You got to offer $500 or they will send you to jail. For Social Security, the version of the scam I've heard very often is simply, your social security card has expired, which it can't. And if you don't pay us $500 right now to renew it, we're going to send you to jail. So again, these are trying to scare you. What I will first say, if you go further along in these scams, usually what they'll do is they'll ask for payment, and it's not usually a direct deposit. What they usually want are gift cards. So if the IRS or Social Security is asking you to go buy them Target gift cards or Google Play gift cards, something has gone very wrong. No legitimate corporation, no legitimate marketing, no legitimate government service is going to ask for you to pay them in gift cards. And the most common gift card last year was Target gift cards, followed by Google Play gift cards, and I think it was Amazon gift cards. So you have to be that should be set off alarm bells. The moment they start asking for that, just know you're dealing with somebody illegitimate. And something else to keep in mind, the reason why they ask for gift cards is simply due to the fact that it's very easy to hide where the money's going. So for instance, if they direct deposit or you direct deposit them the money, then they need a bank account. And that bank account is pretty easy for a bank to see, at which point, authorities can look at it and find out who it is connected to. Instead, with a gift card, what they're able to do is they're able to sell it on some illicit sites. So people spend $35 for a $50 gift card, for instance. And since they didn't spend anything on the gift card, it's just free money for them. Okay, so grandparent scams. So all of these scams are very bad, but this is probably the most evil of the bunch. So how this works very often is that you'll have somebody call you and they'll claim that they have your grandchild. And there's two versions of it. Either your grandchild is hospitalized in a foreign country and they haven't paid for the hospital room, so the hospital's going to kick them out, and they try to insinuate that your grandchild's probably not going to make it if they're not in the hospital. Or what they may do instead is they'll pretend to be somebody who's a gangster or in organized crime to some capacity. And they'll say, if you don't pay us the ransom fee right now, we're going to kill your grandchild. Now, what I used to say in the past was they're just trying to scare you. If you listen carefully, you'll notice that they don't mention a name or a country or anything. They're simply trying to scare you. That's used to be true. That's still true for some of them, I'm sure. But while giving this presentation a few months ago, somebody chimed in and mentioned that a friend of theirs received one of these phone calls, the fake hospital one. And unfortunately, they did know the granddaughter's name, and they also knew the country where she was vacationing at the time. And the reason for that is actually pretty simple. Everybody's using social media this day and age. The granddaughter was posting on Facebook. Facebook had her full first name, her last name, who her family was, and she was posting about her trip. So scammers are able to look at that, find out who the grandparents are, call them, and then immediately claim with pretty accurate information that their granddaughter was in danger. And that's just very upsetting. And again, it's very understandable if somebody freaks out and thinks that somebody they love is in danger. But again, the chances of either scenario happening are very, very small. It is in your best interest to just hang up if you receive a phone call like that and call either the grandchild or the parents, and they'll usually immediately tell you, oh yeah, no, they're fine. So again, they just try to scare you, so you give them money immediately. So computer virus scams. This is unfortunately a very common one as well. And this can take the form of, I would say, two ways. Either you'll get a email saying you have a phone, or sorry, you'll get an email saying you have a computer virus, and then they'll usually direct you to call a number, or they'll correspond with you on email. But oftentimes you'll also receive a phone call from somebody claiming they're from either Microsoft, Amazon, or Google, or Facebook, some kind of big tech company. And then what they'll do is they'll claim you have a computer virus. And let's just stop right there. So firstly, none of the tech companies are ever able to tell if you have a virus on your computer. Furthermore, they're never going to call you to let you know that you have a virus. So then, they tell you you have a virus and that they're going to help you get rid of the virus. So what then they'll have you do is they'll probably have you pay $250, somewhere around that region, to get a tech specialist to help clean your computer. At that point, what the tech specialist will usually do is they'll install some kind of remote desktop software. And what that does is it allows them to use your computer from their own computer. At that point, they can do a lot of things, and your computer's very much compromised. Very often, what they will do at that point is they'll have you go to your online banking account. And what they can do there is they can't access your online banking account without, your password and your information. And they don't have that information yet. So what they do is they can change what the screen says. So they'll make it look like they took a lot of money out of your bank account, and they say, you have to pay us $500 and we'll give you back your money. Now, if you refresh the screen, what will happen instead is you'll notice your money's still in your bank account. They just changed the numbers on the screen. But again, you never want to get to that point. The moment anyone is telling you to download a remote desktop software, such as Remote Desktop or TeamViewer, immediately just stop talking to them. They're trying to scam you. You don't ever want to be in a situation where somebody has complete control of your computer, because that just leaves you very vulnerable. So then, so this says Chinese consulate. This has been done in a variety of different languages. I know during the pandemic, I would also get these pretty often, where you'd get a phone call either in Chinese, Vietnamese, or Korean, where they'd state in their foreign language that they're from, that country's consulate or embassy, and you have expired documents. And then they'll try to threaten you either with jail time or deportation if you don't send them a certain amount of money. So again, it's a lot like the IRS and Social Security scams, where it's not a legitimate government entity. And a lot of times nowadays, you're not getting a real person on these ones. They're usually a robot. I guess they think that makes it sound more official. But again, another thing to keep in mind, IRS and Social Security, just doubling back to that, they won't contact you from phone calls. They'll send you mail. So that's another important indicator that it's a scam. If it's not through the mail, it's not looking legitimate. So then, charity scams. These are also very unfortunate, simply because they're very easy to fall for, and they can go undetected for a long time. So a charity scam is when somebody just creates a fake charity and they just ask for donations. Most of the time when you donate to a charity, you don't actually know what happens afterwards. So they're getting away with that, where they'll either send through the mail some advertisements on their charity and they'll ask for donations. So one way to find out if a charity is legitimate or not is to use the website called Charity Navigator. Charity Navigator, they do full transparency reports on different charities. So for instance, if you look at Legal Assistance for Seniors, we're on there. You can see how much our executives are getting paid. And that's a good way to find out if a charity is legitimate. And they're all also assigned a score. If a charity is not on Charity Navigator, you're likely donating to a fake charity. So again, just always do your due diligence and check beforehand. I see we have something in the chat. Let me just check that real quick. Jesse posted Charity Navigator onto the chat, and that's a wonderful resource. So again, be sure to check it out if you think about donating to a charity. So COVID-19 scams.
Yeah, thanks.
So COVID-19 scams, these used to be a lot more common before the vaccines were out. You'd have a lot of miracle cures for COVID where they'd give you pellets and they said, oh, this would cure your COVID or this would protect you. But again, if a doctor isn't endorsing it, if it's not endorsed by legitimate scientific people or by medical professionals, I'd be very hesitant. More often than not, they're just trying to get your money and sell you something fake. There have been more COVID-19 scams recently as well. There have been some scams where people are offering free COVID testing, for instance, and You just have to provide your Medicare number, and then at which point they'll bill Medicare for a variety of different services that you'll never receive. And they may even just send you a back brace, because that seems to be the go-to for a lot of these Medicare fraud scammers. Now, this is another very insidious scam, romance scams. These are really unfortunate. So how they often work is you'll be on social media and you'll receive a message of some kind. It could be from Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp or wherever you receive messages. And it'll be somebody saying, oh, is this blah, blah, blah. And then they'll say, oh, sorry, I sent this text to the wrong person. But also, you seem like a very beautiful and interesting individual. Can we get to know each other better? At which point they may spend some time trying to cultivate some kind of relationship with you. This can take several days, weeks, or even months. Sometimes scammers are very willing to wait a while before they ask for any money. And then usually after a certain point, what will happen is they'll say, I really want to visit you, but I can't afford a plane ticket. So then they'll ask, can you send me money? And then I'll fly over to you and then we can be together. Unfortunately, usually what happens afterwards is when you send the money, they'll just say, oh, something came up, I wasn't able to. And they'll just keep stringing you along until you stop sending them money. Another way this manifests is maybe instead of a plane ticket, they might say, oh my God, my family member is, they need a surgery and I can't afford it. Can you help pay for it? Something to that effect. They try to, again, make you believe them, and then they'll ask for money. And they can be very persistent as well, which is unfortunate. Now, something to really look out for when it comes to romance scams as well. A lot of times, what they will do is they will make you into a money mule. And what a money mule is it's somebody who assists a scammer with moving around financial assets. So, for instance, a lot of the time, what they'll do is, can I move this money into your checking account, for instance, and then can you send it to me at this other account number? And if you do that, you're moving money around illegally at that point, and you're assisting with the scam. So you have to be very careful when it comes to romance scams, because you don't want to become a money mule. That's illegal, and you may end up facing some of your own issues with authorities if you get caught. So something else to keep in mind as well. Yes, Jesse.
Oh, I was just going to share, I've also seen this play out in person. There was somebody and they rode BART at the same time pretty frequently. You know, they were going to the same trips weekly. And so they cultivated a relationship. And then pretty soon they needed, you know, $5 for a ticket. And then they needed, you know, $10 for this. And then they paid him back. And then they needed $20 for this. And it escalated to going to the ATM together and withdrawing a lot of money. So it also happens in person.
Very unfortunate, but yeah, I can definitely believe it happens in person too.
Mm-hmm.
So always have to be vigilant, and it's very unfortunate that people have to always be on guard, even when you know, it comes to romantic relationships, or what you believe to be one anyway. Something else I'll say about romance scams real quick is when it comes to, let's say, if it's occurring through social media, a very good way to find out if somebody's legitimate or not is to look at the friends list. Very often, a romance scammer is courting many other people at the same time. So if you look at somebody's profile and their entire friends list is older women who all seem to be widowed, that's a red flag. If you're looking at somebody's friends list and all their friends are older men who are single, also a red flag. So again, it's a good indicator right there that it's a romance scammer. But they're using fake pictures more often than not, and they're creating fake accounts. Something else that isn't on here that I do want to touch upon real quick is cryptocurrency. So cryptocurrencies are a big thing right now. You've probably heard of either Bitcoin or NFTs or something about that on the news. And a lot of people are using it as a way to think of getting rich quick. Now, again, the old adage is always true. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. A lot of people are using these words to sell you something that's just simply a scam. So if you don't know much about Bitcoin or NFTs, it's probably better to just not get involved with it than to try and invest in something that can really just end up in you losing a lot of money. Beyond that, though, very often people in the audience have heard of or known other scams that they haven't heard about or that I haven't heard about. So if you have any examples right now, feel free to unmute and just discuss anything that you've seen.
I can go ahead and share that what you are describing happens to me on WhatsApp a lot. I've had one person, say, "Oh, is this Professor Martin?" And, I said, "Oh, nope, must have the wrong phone number." And then they said, "Oh, thank you. You seem very kind," and then they wanted to keep the conversation go. And then it happened 2 more times in the following 2 weeks. And then when I looked back, all of their profile pictures was essentially like the same fake virtual person. So I thought that was interesting. And then I actually have a piece of mail that came to my in-laws that I wanted to ask you about later. And so I can share my screen later to ask you about it because I wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I mean, that is how they usually reach out, which again, they go like, "Oh, sorry, wrong text." And then they're like, "Oh, but you seem very nice." And, something else to keep in mind as well, scams can come in any form. Mail is falling out of fashion because it's easier to track, but text messages, phone calls, emails, those are all very common. If no one has any additional...
I have
Go.
a question. I
Sure.
wanted to ask an informal survey. This is Zandra Martin. I wanted to know how many people on the call actually answer their telephone when it rings. I do not answer the telephone because, we all have caller ID pretty much. And unless I recognize who the caller is, I just let it go to voicemail. And if it's actually somebody that I know, I call them back. But most of the time it's a telemarketer, which I don't really want to talk to, or a scammer. So I was just curious.
I mean, I don't.
Okay.
I don't answer my phone.
Norman?
I do the same. I don't answer my phone. My voicemail picks it up. If I recognize it, nowadays they even use different names for the people that's calling you. It's really confusing. I don't know what to do. I just don't answer it.
Margaret? Oh, you're on mute.
There we go. Now
Yeah.
it's okay. Okay. No, I never answer the phone, and those email things, I just, Facebook, I just delete all that stuff. I don't think there's anything there. I have another kind of problem that has to do with credit card fraud. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, sure. We'll talk a little bit about credit card fraud a little later, but yeah, sure. You can ask your question now. And we'll
Okay.
see.
Well, I've had several bad experiences, but the worst was I was trying to get a moving company to send some stuff to Oregon. And I was recommended to this company, I won't say their name, but they said, in order to talk to you about whether we might potentially do this, you need to sign this paper, which on DocuSign. So I said, okay, and I did. That was a terrible mistake because every time I talked to them after that, the cost of this move increased till it was way past $1,700. And I said, I don't want to deal with your company. It's really bad. And I'm an older person and I don't think I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And they said, well, that's too bad because you cannot get your money back. The paper you signed says that you will pay this. I think it was up to $2,000 by
Jeez.
then. And I'm Bank of America. And I actually went to the bank. I worked on this for a month. I have law service, and they gave me some lawyers who said, well, we can't, this is a small claims court issue and we can't really help you. And most of them wouldn't even call me back. So, I feel like I was taken advantage of because I'm an older person. I couldn't quite read the 50-page document they sent me. And the Bank of America, we'll use their name, used that fact. They said they did a fraud investigation, but it came back, oh, the merchant proved that they delivered it. I never got any service whatsoever, nothing.
Yeah, no. And that's very unfortunate. And that definitely falls under the lines, in my opinion, of misleading marketing, and them having you sign a document that no one could reasonably be expected to read. I believe on one of our later slides we do have the contact information for the California Department of Consumer Protections. I believe that's what it's called, and you can file a complaint against deceptive marketing and corporations doing something like that. And if it's not there at the end, I'll definitely reach out in the chat and I'll send you some information that might be useful.
Okay. And also, this isn't the first time I've sent for other things online and they bill a credit card for more than what you ordered and they won't take it back and all that. It's gotten so I don't want to use my credit card online at all for anything.
I get that. What I will say is, like, it's, for instance, in a moving company situation, it might be better to just tell them, I'm not going to give you my credit card until some service is provided, or something to that effect, because it's just dangerous.
Yeah.
What about,
Go ahead.
I have a question. What about the scams you get about your house? I get a lot of those. It's like I get 2 or 3 a day.
Yeah,
I don't know how they get that information and what I can do about it.
The unfortunate thing, at least with a lot of scams, is using information that's available to the public more often than not. So, for instance, when it comes to home ownership, they can probably look up, who owns a home in some area, and then they can track the address to that. And it's very annoying, but oftentimes the best tactic is to ignore a lot of it, which if
will they ever show up at your home?
Hopefully not. If they ever show up to your home and they're not legitimate, you can always contact the police and say to somebody on my property who I don't want to be here. I mean, that's always an option.
Well, they never come here in Oakland, so
yeah. All right, beyond that, I'll continue onward. So then, another kind of scam to be wary for is when it comes to hiring outside help. This often takes the form of contractors, where somebody may come to your house and they say, oh, I can help with your front yard. Just give me $500 and I'll help. Oftentimes, if a contractor just comes to you, there's something usually pretty wrong about that. Usually you have to seek out a contractor. So let's say, for instance, they can either just take your money, or instead of taking your money, what they might do is they just might do a very subpar job instead. So you can always check for whether a contractor has a license. We'll provide some information, a phone number to call to check and see if they have a license. But even if you're hiring somebody who doesn't have a license, it's important to look at references. Find somebody who they've worked for before and just look at the quality of work they did beforehand. And that usually will protect you. Now, hiring caregivers. Unfortunately, your caregiver will also very oftentimes be in a position where they can take advantage of you. And it's unfortunate. You wish they wouldn't. So whenever you're hiring a caregiver, you always want to do a background check and call their references to make sure they are who they say they are, because it's easy to lie on a resume. And then if you're concerned about them stealing, you should put all your valuables in one place. Either you can put them in a safe deposit box or some other safe place in your home, and take a picture of your valuables there. If you suspect they're stealing from you, what you can always do is look at your valuables, look at the picture, and compare. If you haven't moved anything, then if something is missing, it's probably the caretaker stealing from you. Also, it's very important, ask any trusted friends or family members to drop by unannounced. And the reason for that is if for whatever reason your caregiver is abusing you, then if they know somebody's coming by, they won't abuse you. So if people regularly come by unannounced, they'll have to be on their best behavior at all times, and would help ensure that nothing bad may happen to you. Now, unfortunately, there's also a new caregiver scam going around recently. So the National Center on Elder Abuse has become aware of a pattern that's been going on. Typically, how it works is that an older adult will have a caregiver, and the caregiver will work the regular shift, and then they'll say, I'm really tired. Can I just spend the night here instead? I'm going to be here tomorrow anyway. Can I please just spend the night? And, you want to be nice. So you tell them, sure, you can sleep over. During the night, no caregiving services are used whatsoever. And the issue probably doesn't come up until maybe a few weeks or a month after, where your caregiver either quits or you fire them. They'll get an attorney and go after you and say, that night I gave you care and I wasn't paid for it. That's wage theft and you owe me money. Now, of course, you had an agreement that you weren't going to receive any care from them. But at that point, it's your word against theirs. And in court, it's really hard to prove either person is right. So what you want to do is to not let the situation occur. If somebody has to spend the night, it's better to tell them, I don't like where this puts me legally. But I also understand not everybody is willing to turn away people like that. So something that may help, and I don't know if this would work, but it may help, is you can also just create a piece of paper, on it write that your caregiver is spending the night, but they will not administer any care services. Have them sign the paper the night they're spending over, and then the morning after, just to prove that, hey, we agreed to them not taking care of me, and they also signed saying that they didn't provide any care. And that would probably be a bit more persuasive than just he said, she said. If you know any cases like this going on, you can always contact the National Center on Elder Abuse. Their email is there down below at ncea@med.usc.edu. There are some more general rules for protection. More often than not, scammers are going to come to you instead of you contacting them. So you never want to disclose any of your personal information over the phone if you didn't initiate communication. They may say, oh, we're with AT&T and we have a great new deal for you. But unfortunately, again, if they contacted you, you have no way of knowing if this is legitimately AT&T or if you're just giving payment or account information over to somebody who can use it to exploit you. Another thing to keep in mind, if you get a phone call from a scammer, you want to take down their name, their company affiliation, and their phone number, and just tell them you're going to call back later. Scammers hate it when you do that because, again, a lot of them are spoofing their phone numbers. So if you call back the same number, you're not going to reach them again. So if they get really mad about you calling back, it's probably a scammer. Beyond that, though, if you're still not sure, you can always contact a trusted friend or a family member and just tell them about the phone call. And usually by that point, the two of you can figure out whether there's something weird going on or not. And then if somebody's making some promises or guarantees, you can get in writing and take your time to review it. That's a good way of just looking over and making sure that things are legitimate. Again, when it comes to scams, don't let anyone rush you into signing anything. That's how a lot of these people operate, where they want you to sign something immediately because they know if you think about it, if you look over it, you'll realize that you're going to be scammed. And just a good word of advice is don't buy things from people who knock on your door. In California, we do have some protection. If you sign a contract from a door-to-door solicitation, you have about 3 days to cancel it in writing. There was a new law passed in January 1st, 2021 that made it so if you're over the age of 65, you get two additional days to cancel it beyond the 3. So now you have 3 to 5 business days to cancel any contracts from a door-to-door solicitation. There's some more general rules for protection as well. Again, if somebody claims to be from a company, you always want to verify their identity. You can ask for an ID card of theirs or call their company to confirm their identity. They should be able to, again, PG&E should be able to say, yeah, this is our employee, or AT&T, or whoever it is. You also want to look over your bills carefully and investigate anything that may look unusual. So if you contact a business, use that contact information on the bill they send you, or the invoice, or the back of your bank or credit card. The reason why is because that is legitimate. You know the phone number you're calling is them. If you go online, usually you'll find a legitimate website, but sometimes there are fake websites designed to lead people to scammers. So again, if you see something that looks unusual, which means you're probably already being scammed, and you go to a fake website and call somebody pretending to be, let's say, Bank of America, for instance, you might be scammed again. So that's why it's important. Just look at the back of a bill instead, and usually that'll lead you to the right number. So just some general red flags to keep in mind. If a salesperson tells you that it's a limited time offer, or if you can't bring in a lawyer or a family member to look over a document, if they claim there's a secret that lawyers or doctors don't want you to know about, that's a red flag. Or if you have to pay up front, that's also a red flag. And the thing I will remark on, again, secret that a lawyer or a doctor doesn't want you to know about. Lawyers and doctors are professionals. Yes, they're very expensive, but they've gone through a lot of schooling to get where they are. So oftentimes, if somebody claims to have knowledge they don't, they're usually trying to mislead you. And remember, never be afraid or embarrassed to ask questions or for help. Because again, the moment you start asking questions, you're usually going to trip up a scammer. And that'll usually make it more obvious that you're dealing with somebody who's not legitimate. And of course, as always, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. So something else that's important to keep in mind as well is your credit report. So if you want to see if, for whatever reason, things are going, if you just want to see if lines of credit have been opened in your name, or you want to just do a check, you can always check annualcreditreport.com, and you can order one free credit report per year from Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Now that has changed. Because of COVID, they have changed it from one free report from each agency per year to one free report per agency every week. I don't know how it went from a year to a week, but because of COVID, they're offering weekly credit reports now. So you just go to the website. The original deadline was April 20th, 2022, but it's been extended to December, I want to say December 20th, 2022. So again, you can request a credit report for free every week now. You just go to that website. Now, I do wish the website was designed a bit better. The website is a .com, and they do ask for literally all your information that's very personal and scary to give out, like your social security number and literally everything to identify you. But it is legitimate, and there you can get your credit reports. So when you receive a credit report, what you want to look at is your credit rating. If it's gone down, for instance, then that's a sign that somebody else may be using your credit. If there's any incomplete or inaccurate information, that might be somebody who tried to use your credit, but they didn't know all of your information, so they just made it up on the spot. If there are any accounts open or closed in your name that you definitely don't remember opening, you might want to contact somebody about that. And then if there's any negative information, that's usually a good sign that any negative information that you don't expect, let's be clear, that's usually a good sign that somebody else may be using your credit. So then, if you notice something funky on your credit report, what are the steps you can take if you're a victim of identity theft or fraud? Well, there are some immediate steps you want to do. You immediately want to contact your financial institution or company that the fraudulent accounts are with. You want to close those accounts immediately, at which point you want to file a police report. And then what you can do is you can place a fraud alert or a credit freeze. Most major banks this day and age have fraud alerts in place where if they suspect that somebody is using your bank account, like your credit card, for instance, and they have a feeling it's not you, they will call you and ask you to verify. But credit freezes are also useful. How a credit freeze works is that it freezes all lines of credit, and in order to reopen it, you have to provide a PIN that you've set up and created yourself. And that really stops scammers because, again, that PIN is essential and most scammers aren't going to ask for it. You can also just keep all, or well, if you're dealing with identity theft, what you want to do is you want to keep copies of all documentation regarding it because, again, you want to leave a paper trail. And the reason why you want to keep a paper trail is because under California Civil Code, it says that upon notice from a debtor of fraudulent activity, a creditor must cease all collection activity and conduct an investigation. What does that mean in plain English? Well, what that means is if you tell your bank, hey, I know you say I owe you this money, but somebody else is using my credit and it's not me, what the bank has to do is they have to say, okay, we can't take your money right now. Instead, what we're going to do is conduct an investigation and find out, is somebody actually using your credit or is it just you? So bank accounts and fraudulent withdrawals, if your ATM or debit card is lost or stolen immediately, let me try that again. If your ATM or debit card is lost or stolen, you want to report it immediately. And the reason for that is simply because they can deactivate it so nobody takes your money. But also, if it's a credit card, for instance, the amount that you can be held responsible for losing depends on how quickly you report the loss. So if you report the loss immediately, you may lose no money at all. Or if you report it in a somewhat reasonable time frame, and let's say, somebody withdrew some money, you may not actually be on the hook for all that money. The bank may compensate you for it. So again, the general steps when it comes to dealing with banks are, you want to call the financial institution. You want to follow that up by writing a certified letter because you want to have a paper trail, and you keep a copy of that letter for your records. Because again, under California law, they have to stop asking for you to repay any debts the moment they realize that somebody else is using your credit. So then,
question.
Yes.
How do you write a certified letter? How do you get that letter certified?
So my understanding for a certified letter would probably be you want it to be notarized. You want somebody to, verify that it's a legitimate letter.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So let's just talk a little bit about Medicare fraud. I know we've gone over in time, so I'm trying to go kind of fast. Sorry about that. But something important to keep in mind. The Medicare program is huge. So every year, unfortunately, it does lose billions of dollars to waste, fraud, and abuse. About 10% of Medicare's budget is lost due to, again, waste, fraud, and abuse. There are several fraud-fighting task force out there. There's HEAT at stopmedicarefraud.gov. And there's also the Senior Medicare Patrol, where they're basically a watchdog that looks for any kind of Medicare fraud going on. You can report it to them, and they'll do their own investigations. So then, here's just some examples of Medicare fraud. You can be billed for services you haven't received. You may have your Medicare number stolen, and then it'll be billed. There might be free services advertised. So you give them your Medicare number, and then they bill you for a lot of different medical services that you never requested. There's also this thing called unbundling, where they submit separate bills for the same service. So they're charging you multiple times for something that should have only been charged once. Or there's upcoding, where they'll bill you for a more expensive procedure than what you were actually given. So you might be wondering, why does this matter to me? Medicare pays for this. Why does it affect me? Well, Medicare will pay for some things. Under Medicare Part B, you are on the hook for a 20% co-insurance, and depending on what they're billing you for, you might actually have to pay some of these fraudulent services. Beyond that as well, if it is free under Medicare, let's say it's a preventative benefit, out of preventative benefits under Medicare are only usable in certain time frames. So let's say, for instance, like A cardiac screening, I believe you get like 4 every 2 years. If that's the case, then if they bill you for 4 of them and then your doctor says you need it, you're going to have to pay out of pocket for that service because Medicare has used the allotted time. So it's always important to just be vigilant about your Medicare services. And I'll show how you can keep track of that a little bit later. But there's also marketing misconduct that goes on. This is blatantly illegal, but sometimes it does happen where medical insurance companies who are offering their Medicare Advantage plans, they may receive payments or kickbacks for selling people amount of plans. They may offer you some kind of bribe or free gift for your Medicare number, which is illegal and usually leads to Medicare fraud. There's also marketing violations out there, such as door-to-door sales. They're not allowed to do that. They're not allowed to call you seeking any personal information. They're not allowed to misrepresent who they are. And what we mean by that is, again, if it's a third-party insurance company, they're not allowed to say, we are Medicare. They have to say, we are a Medicare Advantage plan. That's how it goes. And then cross-selling, they're not allowed to sell you other insurance products when they're selling you a Medicare Advantage plan. They have to only talk about Medicare at that point. And again, I'm sorry, I know I've gone over. We're near the end, I swear.
Oh, no, it's okay, Darren. I just wanted to put that in the chat in case anyone does need to take off. We will send a follow-up email, and there is a survey in the chat. But this is really valuable information, and I think we have a lot of questions. So everyone, thank you so much for attending. If you do need to take off, I will send a follow-up email, but we really appreciate this. And so if you have the time, there's a few of us who'd like to stay on to ask questions.
I would like a copy of the thing
slide.
to get the credit report.
Sure. Yeah. I could send out the slides to Jesse, and then you can send them out to everybody who attended, right?
That sounds wonderful. Yeah.
What is that? A copy of where you get your free credit report?
On the slides, I can send out the slides, and then on our slide over here, let's see here, slide 18, you can just go to the link right there, annualcreditreport.com. And again, we'll send you all these slides because it has a lot of great information and resources, phone numbers and agencies you can contact. So that'll be beneficial.
Thank you all. I'm going to have to leave. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks. I'm leaving too.
Everybody's leaving.
If everybody
It's their lunchtime.
That's fair, I guess.
Thanks, Darren.
No problem. No problem. So for those of us still here, I'll just keep going for right now, unless there's nobody else. So for Medicare fraud, what you want to look for is every month you should receive a Medicare summary notice, and that's essentially what your bill for Medicare is. So you're not being charged for your Medicare summary notice, but it will show what Medicare was charged on your behalf. At that point, you can look over it. If you see anything there that either you didn't receive or you're being charged multiple times, you should let Medicare know because you're being taken advantage of. And you should always treat your Medicare card like a credit card. You always want to make sure that your Medicare number is protected. So then, how do you protect yourself from Medicare fraud? Well, don't let anyone borrow or pay to use your Medicare ID card because, again, it's your identity. It's illegal to do that, and also it's not beneficial for you. If your Medicare card gets stolen or you lose it, report it right away. Furthermore, what you want to do is you want to call Social Security because they're in charge of administering the Medicare program. So if you contact them, they can get you a replacement card. Now, if you are part of the Railroad Retirement Board, with a different number, you would contact them and they administer your Medicare benefits. So we have a few numbers on here to report Medicare fraud. Again, we're going to send you the slides, so you don't have to write this down right now, but just some things I want to highlight. HICAP, they're free. They do a wonderful job at walking you through anything regarding Medicare. You can ask any questions and they'll let you know if something seems like it's illegitimate or not. The California Senior Medicare Patrol, they do a fantastic job as well at monitoring any Medicare fraud going on, and they usually have a good idea of current scams. There's also the FTC identity theft hotline. If you feel like your identity has been stolen, you can contact them and they'll help get you sorted out. So then we also just have a few slides here talking about, does fraud prevention work? And the answer is yes. From 2015 to 2017, every dollar spent on fraud investigation, we received $4 back. And furthermore, since 2007, the Medicare program has recovered more than $19 billion by fighting fraud. By fighting fraud. Furthermore, in 2019, it was calculated that for every dollar spent on fraud prevention, $13 was got back. Now, this was an atypical year. There was a huge Medicare fraud ring that was cracked down on. It found out that 35 individuals were responsible for over $2.1 billion in losses. So those people were very rich, but they also got caught pretty fast. So ultimately, those 35 individuals were responsible, but in 2019, overall, 673 people were charged for Medicare fraud. 340 of them were sentenced, and $5.1 billion in losses were gotten back. So that goes to show fraud fighting agencies do work. If you do have an issue with being scammed or you have been frauded, please contact an agency that can help because they are able to assist. Now then, when it comes to just information here, I'll just highlight some of these numbers. Again, you're going to receive the slides, so you shouldn't worry too much about writing them down right now. But the Better Business Bureau, they have information about businesses and you can lodge any complaints you may have against them. There's the Contractor State License Board number. You can call them and find out if a contractor you're talking to has a license or not. There's the District Attorney for Consumer Protection, where if you ever dealt with fraud from a company or something, this is essentially the attorney who would prosecute them in court. The Federal Communications Commission, they'll take any information, advice, and tips about telephone fraud going on because they're in charge of, the phone systems in the country. There is a national do not call list if you want to avoid any unwanted telemarketing scams. If you sign up for that, I know my dad did a long time ago and it never seemed to work, but that's an option. At the very least, if you're on the do not call list, anyone calling you who you don't know is illegitimate at that point, even if they're a telemarketer, because they're not legally supposed to be calling you. There's also the National Elder Fraud Hotline. So if you're over the age of 60 and you've been frauded, contact that number and they should immediately guide you with what you need to do and who else you can contact. And beyond that, just when it comes to, it doesn't have to be fraud related, but legal matters or Medicare questions, you can always contact us at Legal Assistance for Seniors. And again, HICAP is a wonderful resource if you're looking for help with Medicare. Beyond that, that's the presentation. I'm sorry about going 15 over, but I feel like we had a lot of valuable discussion, and feel free to ask any questions because I'm still here.
Great. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions while we have Darren with us?
Darren was very thorough.
Thank you.
Yeah, Darren, this was wonderful.
Good.
I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.